I think that there is definitely evil in this world, and you can see it come through. So many of them have turned their backs on God and the way that they are a unique, individual, loving creation made by God and who is cherished by God.
I find it powerful that 28% of Gen Z has been lost to abortion. And I can't help but think about maybe I'd have another colleague or two right next to me, maybe 50 more students in my high school class. I think that the left likes to portray the pro-life cause as strictly controlled by religious interests. So in my experience, utilizing the more secular arguments that show things like...
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Lauren Muzyka Show. I'm your host, Lauren Muzyka, attorney and president CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life. As we wind down the fourth season of the Lauren Muzyka Show and continuing the theme of healing this season, I wanted to back up for a moment and zoom out, especially after the loss of our friend, Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA recently, and talk about healing our nation and the culture. Providentially, I had already lined up a friend and colleague with a long tenure in elections, fighting for life and family every single day, and that is Dena Espenscheid of the Leadership Institute. We're going to talk about all this today and include another colleague, Matan of the Leadership Institute, covering the youth movement and how they are changing culture and Charlie's legacy. Let me go ahead and give them a proper introduction. Dena Espenscheid graduated from Thomas More College in Northern Kentucky with degrees in biology and speech communication. Over her 20 years of professional experience, Dena has held a variety of positions in public policy organizations, advertising agencies, and political campaigns, including Coalition for a Strong America, National Ballot Access, American Majority, Open and Clean Government, Vote Yes for Life, and the National Abstinence Clearinghouse. Much of her work has been focused on grassroots organizing, training volunteers, and fellow staffers. Dena is a veteran of political campaigns as small as city council and as large as presidential. She has served in most campaign positions, including volunteer coordinator, regional field director, political director, and statewide spokesperson. She's overseen ballot qualification, volunteer recruitment and training, and get out the vote efforts. She has formulated communication strategies, organized events, and participated in personal solicitation. Dena has returned to her roots as a coalition builder, merging that with her campaign and training experience as the senior director of coalitions at the Leadership Institute, where she travels the country, meeting with groups who have special interest goals, developing new trainings to assist these center-right special interest groups win their public policy fights. And Matan is a regional field manager for the Leadership Institute, overseeing outreach across Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. He has helped establish new student groups, organize impactful campus events, and build long-term activist networks throughout the Southeast. Originally from Israel, Matan has lived in San Diego for over 17 years and earned his BA in political science from the University of California, San Diego in 2024. His early involvement in student government and political campaigns sparked his passion for leadership and civic engagement. Matan is especially committed to free speech, anti-corruption efforts, and advancing America First principles. Let's welcome to the program Dena and Matan. All right, good to see both of you. Dena, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you for having us on.
Wonderful to have you. And Matan, how are you?
I'm also doing well. Thank you so much for having us.
Great to have both of you. I want to go ahead and jump right in. This is a tough one. Gosh, I'm still getting my mind around it. The assassination of the 31 years young president of Turning Point USA, co-founder of Turning Point USA, our friend Charlie Kirk. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the loss of this friend in the movement, and what do you think it says about the current state of America? Dena, let's start with you.
I am like you. I'm reeling. I obviously getting our feet back under us. My thoughts first went to how faithful he's been. When Turning Point USA first started, it was just about fighting socialism and other things, and Matan can talk about that more. But a few years ago, there was a definite shift, or at least from the outside looking in, I saw a shift where he started talking more about his faith. And I was really in the immediate aftermath of the assassination. I started paying more attention to his videos and realizing how very faithful he was and how courageous he was. And there was one podcast where he asked, the question was asked hypothetically, if you were to die, if all this goes away, what do you want to be remembered for?
Mm.
And it was courage and faith. And I have just taken strength from that, number one, because that means I can pretty much know with confidence where he's at. I mean, he died while doing the work that I believe God called him to do. And then number two, it has buoyed me up and made me more convinced that I need to talk about my faith more
Mm.
in my work and in my everyday life. And so that's that's kind of where I'm at. And then as far as where the culture is, obviously the culture is sick and it needs to be helped and it needs some massive healing because murder and political execution should not be the way that we solve disputes just because you don't like the views that somebody is sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Matan, your thoughts?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to add on to what Dena was saying, I'm still shocked. It reminds me of one of Morton Blackwell's laws of the public policy process, in which he writes that in volunteer politics, a builder can build faster than a destroyer can destroy. And honestly, Charlie Kirk was a highly successful builder who helped develop that coalition that will continue to motivate principled conservative students across the country. And his loss highlights that we've entered a more dangerous period in America and the world, that people can be attacked and outright murdered for utilizing their First Amendment rights. This type of stuff is only fueled by rhetoric from the left that characterizes every figure on the right as evil villains that must be stopped. And that type of
Yeah.
language directly contrasts what Charlie Kirk stood for: open-minded civil discourse with protected speech for all Americans. We as a movement need to continue to embody these ideals in our everyday lives, and that's one of the best ways we can honor the legacy of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Yeah. So well said. I want to ask another question around this. I know that what Charlie taught me is that dialogue is so important, that we don't have to villainize the other side just because we disagree. I think I posted on my own personal Facebook wall this morning that we tend to be the side with the guns, but it's the other side that's using them against us, right? I tend to be pro gun because I'm pro defense, but disagreement to me begs dialogue, not murder. Um, Dena, can I get your thoughts on that? And then Matan, why is it so important that we don't stop speaking even after this has happened and scared many of us who do travel the country and speak on college campuses, in churches, and in the public square?
Yeah, Chris Plant, who is a radio show here on WMAL here in Washington D.C. He sells shirts called "Remember Normal,"
Mm.
and I kind of grieve for people like Matan because I don't know that Matan you remember normal. I remember when I was in college, there weren't these big dust ups. You could put out crosses, and yeah, there might be some people that came out and disagreed, but there wasn't people threatening to beat you up or knock them down
Yeah.
just because you did that. And until last year on July 14th, the idea of having a political assassination was just, it didn't happen. And when I worked for the Trump campaign, it was actually at one of my rallies where the first fights broke out. And before that, we had no concept
Hmm.
that somebody would enter into a political rally for one of your foes and start screaming and counter protesting and throwing punches.
Hmm.
And it's just, and that was 9 years ago, 2016. I want to go back to normal.
Yeah.
This idea that I can't get along or family members think that they can't follow me on Facebook because of my posts because I happen to be pro life or pro Trump is just sickening. Because after all, I mean, those family members who have unfriended me or blocked me on Facebook, they all profess to be Catholic.
Hmm.
We should be loving the same God and following the same Ten Commandments. And if you love your God, love the Lord your God more than any other, and then love your neighbors yourself, we should find ways to get along, to use the term in the left, to tolerate each other,
Yeah.
to accept each other, and to lovingly dialogue and correct each other, not this I'm going to cut you off and never talk to you again and assume the worst, or to the extent that it's gone, this mental illness and this diabolical I'm going to kill you, beat you up. It's just I don't know. The state of Lauren, you've known me for years. I'm
Yeah.
speechless, and I never get speechless with this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the state of the
Yeah,
culture. There's a sickness, there's an illness here. Matan, what are
yeah,
your thoughts?
Well, definitely to answer your prior question, it's important that we don't stop speaking and don't stop the continuance of this movement that Charlie Kirk helped enable, because if we stop, then that's just letting the other side win. So we need to keep expanding our movement, keep going to college campuses, because Charlie Kirk's proven that that's one of the best ways we can reach out to the youth, and it works. I've seen how these college campuses have evolved. Years ago, when I was attending college for the first time, the the thought of a conservative presence, even in a conservative state, was something not to be considered. However, now, no matter what college campus you go to, you'll see some sort of conservative movement, a Turning Point USA chapter, and it's really important that we keep that up for the sake of our cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask this. What do you guys think is so threatening to the other side? Dena, let me start with you and then go to Matan. Why would we need to take the life of someone like Charlie Kirk? What is so threatening?
well, obviously, you and I and the people I hope listening to this understand that you don't have to take a life to do this. I think what's threatening is that number one, I think that there is definitely evil in this world, and you can see it come through. It seems to be that they believe that we are attacking their way of life.
Mhm.
I'm going to slip back into my roots as a teacher and a trainer just to give you some background. So, there is a book that I love quoting from and talking about. It's Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Diverge on Politics and Religion. And he talks about how your experience and your education shape your intuition, and your intuition is the first way that you judge when you're asked a question and you jump to conclusions. And unfortunately, the left is terrible at predicting the reason behind. They don't have the ability to empathize or to intuitively say, well, the right believes this because, or the whereas the right is pretty good at guessing the reasons for the left, and then libertarians are great at guessing the reasons for both of them. And so what I'm getting at is this: when I say I'm pro-life, a leftist automatically hears I hate women and I don't want anyone to have sex.
Mm,
And when they say I'm against men and women's restrooms, what they think is I hate people who are transgendered and I want them to be neutered and I want them to just conform and immediately get on their knees and repent and go back to God. I do. But I'm not about to force that on somebody because I believe in free will. And
yeah.
obviously, that is not the motivation for why we want to protect children from a transgender person who is exposing themselves in the women's locker room. That is not why we are pro life. We are pro life to stop women from suffering from the dangers of abortion that it brings on, the mental illness and the depression and the suicide and the infertility and the destruction of families. And we are in it to save the babies because we know that every life is precious, that every life has meaning.
Yeah.
And so when they look at us and they see us talking about God in our society, God in our lives, and how we need to get back to God, and that's the ultimate response to how we fix culture. What they are hearing is, you don't love me, you hate me, you don't like my way of life. And because they have turned their backs, so many of them have turned their backs on God in the way that they are a unique, individual, loving creation made by God and who is cherished by God.
Mhm.
They've turned their back on that because all they're feeling is the hatred and the whatever that's blocking them from this mental illness or this demonic possession they're going into and are part of. And so, how do you lash out against somebody who's got God on their side? The only way you can do it is by trying to destroy and divide and shut up. And so, like Matan said, we can't be quiet. We have to be out there. We have to be boldly proclaiming the gospel, and the part of the gospel that we've been called to do. For me, that happens to be politics,
Yeah.
and conservative politics, and pro-life conservative politics. We need to go out there and do it more and louder and not be afraid, because then we let the enemy win. And not that people are in the enemies. We know that we're fighting against principalities.
Yes, absolutely. Matan, what about you? What scares everybody about this kind of dialogue that Charlie engaged in?
Well, they see this new right movement as a threat because we're winning. In years prior,
Yeah.
liberals were able to debate with civil discourse against conservatives, and that type of mindset has changed over the past 5 years. We no longer see a need to speak and understand where the other side is coming from. Instead, they approach us at tables and throw bags of poop or spill coffee on our representatives, and it just shows that they've lost any semblance of being able to argue with facts and reasoning, and instead are resorting to outright violence. And that's what we saw with Charlie Kirk. So I truly believe it's best to continue to embody those ideals that he represented, and continuing to encourage civil discourse, because that's the most important thing for our First Amendment and our civilization to remain.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wish people could see that we can vehemently disagree with each other and still love each other. Like you both said so well, they consider this such a threat to maybe the way that they're living their lives. And maybe it is even a moment of conscience. Like, hey, maybe they know something is not right here and they want to hear differently, or they want to go on living a particular way. I don't know. Right. But either way, can we not disagree and disagree deeply and still love and respect each other and not consider that a threat? It's just unbelievable to me. I want to go ahead and turn to the law and elections. I know that you both believe that elections tend to be downstream from culture. So I want to ask, how do we change our leaders and laws, much less hearts and minds, especially on the issue of life, the greatest issue of our times? So, Dena, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I mean, how do you change elections and laws? You volunteer on elections, you get out the vote, and you go vote. That's the simple equation. I give a presentation. I can do it as little as 8 minutes. I'm not going to do the whole thing here, but it's like 3 simple steps to win an election. Number one is donate as early as possible to the causes that you believe in, because the earlier they get the money, the more that they can actually do stuff with the money. The next one is get involved, talk about your causes, talk about the politicians. When I was growing up, my dad always said we don't talk about politics, religion, or money.
Hmm.
And we've lost that attitude. Meant that we lost the ability to have constructive dialogue on politics, religion, and, well, money. And so if we talk more about why we believe what we believe and the solutions that we support, it doesn't have to be politics. You can talk about the good work that the pregnancy care centers are doing. Oh, and by the way, did you know that my politician actually supports that pregnancy care center?
Hmm.
These are little ways that we can change the dialogue, change the culture, change the that intuition I mentioned earlier in the interview, um, about how we act and perceive and how they perceive our candidates. The last thing to do is not only get involved in volunteering, not only vote, but I want you to vote as early as possible. A couple reasons. Number one, it locks in your vote so that, God forbid, if anything should happen to you, you've already voted. You don't have to worry about it. But number two, the campaigns say, okay, I'm going to spend $50. I'm going to spend $100 making sure that Lauren votes. And until Lauren votes, I'm doing phone calls. I'm sending volunteers to her house. I'm sending mailers to her house. Lauren, if you vote on the first day of early vote, I can take you off my list, and I can take that $49 that I haven't spent yet and spend it trying to find Matan, or go out and find brand new voters who aren't even on our list yet and get them to vote for us and with us. So those are the 3 steps basically to winning elections. And then The last thing is to support youth movements like the TPUSA, like Leadership Institute's college programs, where we support every conservative group on campus, from Students for Life, the TPUSA, Network of Enlightened Women, Concerned Women for America, Young Women for America. We support them all. And what we're doing there is building up this youth movement so that these young people come out of college as conservatives, so that they become young professionals who are conservatives, so they become middle aged professionals who are conservatives, and they keep voting conservative.
There you go. Great advice. Matan, what would you say?
Yeah, and just to add on to what Dena was saying through a more cultural perspective, I believe that it all starts with the perverse culture that's infected our society over the past few decades and the disencouragement of the nuclear family. Charlie Kirk often spoke on the importance of getting married and having children, as well as taking responsibility for your actions. So we must continue to champion this traditional culture and highlight how the pro life movement ties into that. By carrying on Charlie's legacy of that strong youth movement with grassroots efforts, will surely make an impact through leaders and laws throughout the future, because it's all about developing that over time rather than trying to make an immediate impact now that might not be as successful.
So powerful. So well said. Let's talk about messaging. What have you all seen as the most effective messaging to changing hearts and minds? Dena?
Storytelling. They've done studies over and over and over again that show that if you tell a story and then ask the person whom you're talking to put themselves into that position, um, they are more likely to come to your side. Like, here's what happened when I had to make a decision on my best friend being pregnant outside of marriage. What would you do if you were her instead? Um, that type of thing, that type of question, that type of story. It's kind of funny because it brings me back to a Charlie Kirk quote that I read just this morning. Now I'm going to butcher it terribly, but he said something like, "If you people start the yawn when you talk about socialism, but if you talk about the impacts of what socialism brings, the higher taxes, the less choice, the more regulations, all these things." So I'm going to tell you a story. Bernie Sanders, a socialist, was saying he walked into Walgreens and he saw like 20 or 30 different deodorants. Who needs that much deodorant? Well, under a socialist communist system that Bernie wants, you only get one deodorant. We get to choose from 20 different smells and 4 different labels and 15 different strengths.
Yeah.
And how wonderful is that? Do you want just the government mandated deodorant, or do you want to choose your own deodorant? Now, I know that's something stupid that has nothing to do with life, but it just starts planting those seeds of, well, you can go to Trader Joe's and they're great and you get your choice of 3 different apples, or you can go to Wegmans, you can have 25 different apples to choose from. And that's the difference between socialism, which is still capitalist, Trader Joe's is capitalist, and a capitalist place. You tell the stories, you give the real world examples. Don't do statistics. They're just, nobody wants to hear statistics. And talk about the good work the pregnancy care centers and the sidewalk advocates do. And
I
God.
love that. All right, Matan?
Well, just to slightly add on to what Dena was saying, I do enjoy the statistic that, or not enjoy, but I find it powerful that 28% of Gen Z has been lost to abortion. I mean, that's such a powerful image that comes to mind. And I can't help but think about, maybe I'd have another colleague or two right next to me, maybe 50 more students in my high school class. It's just really evoking and something to think about that I think, when expanded upon, could be useful for changing the hearts and minds of different students and people across the country. But I also think another display that can be very effective is that which shows the brutal procedure that abortion can entail. I've seen lots of different Students for Life displays all across the country, in which sometimes they'll highlight videos or even do a whole presentation of the exact details involved in an abortion. So I think doing that really shows the negative effects of that and how poor it can be for our society.
Yeah, it's so important. And that right there, even just those campus displays, they generate conversation and dialogue and get people thinking. And if we can win them right there at that crux moment of their lives, it'll change the whole direction of their life, right? And an individual changes a
Absolutely.
family, changes a community. changes the state, the nation, and the world. There's a ripple effect every time we talk to one person at a time. Absolutely. Um, what mistakes do you see people who love life and family making? What should conservatives stay away from when they're trying to change hearts and minds on pivotal issues like this?
Um, the first thing that came to mind, and it actually came to mind a couple of questions ago, is I do believe we need to get back to church.
Yeah.
We need the community and we need the support of the community. So, one of the big mistakes I think that pro lifers make, and not all, because obviously we're a very well churched group by and large, but if you're not currently part of a religious faith community, find one, get back into it. One of my best friends moved, and so she didn't find a church that she liked, so she was doing online, but she didn't have that support. She walked back into a Catholic church for the first time in 15 years, and she called me immediately afterwards and said, I walked through the door and it felt like home. And I was like, welcome back,
Wow.
babe. You know, like, find that church community, because you do need those people that are there to listen to you, to talk to you, to pray with you, even if you have that personal relationship with Jesus. The personal relationship to me is obviously pivotal, but that community of saints here on earth is also necessary to help voice it up. So I think that's one of the problems. The other problem is, and this is not a problem, but I think it is something that we did for 60 years, 50 years, was focused primarily on the baby. And it is important. And we all want to save the babies. And I'm not saying the baby is not important. But unfortunately, that allowed the left to take this area that said, oh, well, then abortion is normal and healthy and everyone should get one. And don't worry, mom, you're going to be just fine. You can go on and have more kids later. No one leaves the abortion facility laughing. No
So
one
true.
leaves the abortion facility celebrating. Everyone leaves the abortion facility changed. And I mean, that's from the person that walked her in, to the people that work there, to the woman who was forced, coerced, pressured most of the time into it, or the woman who chose it willingly where she thought she had her eyes wide open.
Mhm.
So we need to be talking more about abortion's impact on women, abortion's impact on men, abortion's impact on families. Because when we talk about that, slowly over time, we change the intuition so that when mom has her 17, 18, 19, 20-year old daughter come to her and says, I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
The daughter, if she goes to mom, is not looking to say, will you walk with me into the abortion facility? What she's actually asking is, I don't know what to do. Tell me you're going to help me have this baby.
Mm.
What mom is, and boyfriend, same thing. When she goes to the boyfriend and says, I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do, if his immediate response is, babe, we've got this, we're going to be amazing parents, we'll figure it out, she thinks he wants her to have an abortion,
Yeah.
because that's the situation that's been built up. And so we want that mom and that boyfriend and the dad and the grandparents and everybody else to have this intrinsic gut reaction of negative. No, I don't want my daughter and my son to be more likely to develop mental illness, to be more likely to develop chemical dependence, to be more likely to commit suicide, to have harder problems bonding with future children, to on and on and on, all the side effects of abortion. The more we talk about those, the more people won't be looking at abortion as the healthy alternative to 18 years of a scrying little brat thing hanging off me, you know?
Yeah.
And so we need to change that. And so it's not just about the baby, it's about the adults that are involved in this decision too. We got to tell them why it's wrong for them.
Yeah. Address them both. Love them both. Absolutely. Matan, what mistakes do you see conservatives making?
Yeah, to respectfully add another perspective to what Dena was saying, I do believe that the religious arguments for or for the pro-life movement, it can be helpful to attract conservative pro-life people to our
Mm.
side. However, I think that the left likes to portray the pro-life cause as strictly controlled by religious interests who seek to unite the church and state. So playing into that is something that I've seen not work on college campuses and that
Yeah.
conservatives tend to make mistakes with. So, in my
Yeah.
experience, utilizing the more secular arguments that show things like how early fetuses feel pain, the mental health effects of an abortion, and the racist
Mm.
origins of Planned Parenthood. I find those all to be extremely effective when trying to make the case for a liberally minded person.
Yeah, yeah, meeting people where they are, that makes so much sense. Even out on the sidewalk, when we initially meet someone at an abortion facility here at Sidewalk Advocates for Life, we don't go in and say, "Do you know Jesus?" I want people to know Jesus. That's the ultimate goal, right? But we start with mom. We start with her first. She won't hear what we have to say if she doesn't know that we care about her and her perceived crisis first, right? Mom, baby, God. That's what we teach in our training. And it is interesting when I first put this out there because people are like, wait a second, what are you trying to say? Mom, baby, God. It should be the opposite. And I always tell people, I agree with you. It is the opposite, but that's not where they are. And I think we have to really, what you're underscoring is that we have to really understand our audience. Who are we talking to? Meet people where they are. And then, just like Charlie, our friend Charlie showed so well, that when we meet people where they are and we kind of start to walk them back through the light of reason, we can get pretty far. And it's pretty powerful. So important. Last question here. Obviously, we are the walking wounded. I think it's at least 1 in 4 women have had an abortion in our country. And I know that people are much less reluctant to even embrace the term pro life if they are first not healed. So, how do we help
Mhm.
America heal and embrace the pro life position? So, Dena and then Matan, what are your thoughts?
One of the things I've been taught while I was learning how to better communicate on pro life, in the pro life field, pro life messaging and stuff, was that if you want to attract people who might be in denial about their abortion harming them, advertise not post abortion healing or post abortion counseling, but reproductive loss counseling
Mm,
or fetal loss counseling, that type of thing. Because that way somebody who is like, my abortion didn't impact me, but I did have a baby that I lost once. Yeah, it was aborted. They're not, the program isn't stigmatized by being linked to the abortion.
mm,
I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say, but it's one of the ways to bring people in. Also, the women, the people who I were told this were Black pastors, and they gave this idea, and the idea was that if women will show up for grieving after losing a baby or losing a pregnancy,
mm,
because nobody could gossip about them possibly having an abortion, where they wouldn't show up to grieving after your abortion
mm,
because now they can be branded as somebody who had an abortion. So that's one of the things. The other thing is, if we keep talking about the impact of abortion and how it causes all these side effects,
mm.
and then maybe it's like, oh, they can make that connection in their brains without you accusing them of having of an abortion, but they can draw the conclusion of, maybe my depression is linked. When did my depression start? you know
Yeah,
and always lead with love and compassion and care.
yeah.
One of the things I faced back in 2006, during my very first statewide pro-life campaign, it was the Love Them Both in 2000, or not Love Them Both, it was Vote Yes for Life in 2006. It was a statewide pro life campaign. We had men come in with the most disgusting of the dead baby victim images, the abortion
Mm,
victim imagery. And they were driving around the state trying to make the point that you need to vote yes to stop abortion. Well, when we met with them and we talked with them about why they were doing this, it all came back to, they wanted to shove it into their girlfriends' faces
wow.
that the girlfriend destroyed the baby. And so they weren't showing these pictures out of love and compassion. They were trying to make others suffer. And so
Mm,
if you're using the victim imagery, that's fine. But always do it out of love and compassion for the women, because again, so many women, one Vitae Foundation look at the studies and statistics found that up to 84% of women were forced, coerced, or pressured into abortion.
wow.
Well, if you're already regretting and lamenting something, the last thing you need is some pro lifer holier than thou who's saintly. I just came from church, and by the way, we've got a new pro life thing, and you need to come in here and repent from your sins.
Mm,
No, I want you to find healing.
Yeah.
I want you to be whole again.
Right.
I don't like seeing you suffer on your child's birthday. Will you please come to this meeting with me and let's talk about it? Instead, lead with love and compassion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've often said too that even though we at Sidewalk Advocates for Life don't use abortion victim photography on the sidewalk, they can be effective in certain situations. I like them best in an
Mhm.
educational setting where there's a chance for dialogue. And if you can find a creative way to solicit
Yes.
consent, even better. I know Students for Life has experimented with this and so forth. And then the viewer feels like they're in a little bit more in control, right? And you can kind of
Hmm.
walk back, some other examples from there. But that's probably a whole other podcast. But I agree. I think, our motivation matters. Our audience is important, how we position it, how we invite dialogue, all of these things matter. Matan, your thoughts on healing the culture in our nation?
Definitely, yeah. I believe we can help America heal from abortion and embrace the pro life cause by tackling the root source of the problem: education and culture. Students need to be educated on the negative consequences of abortion, the importance of the nuclear family, and be discouraged from the sex happy culture that's prevalent across the Western world today. This can be done by revamping the state education systems, as well as providing additional funding for incentives with foster care and adoption agency programs across the country. And additionally, continuing to provide on campus outreach engagements like what Charlie Kirk did. I think that's crucial for maintaining a lasting presence within our ever changing society.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that one of the posts that was circulating just after Charlie passed away was quit partying into oblivion, get married, and have a family. It's just so simple, right? I think that people are
Hmm.
so hungry to fill that void. And what they don't realize is that that's a void that's only meant to be filled by God and everything that is good, right, true, and beautiful, right? We have such a hunger for it. And we don't even know where to start sometimes. And I'm so grateful for Charlie standing up for what was good, right, true, and beautiful. So, and thanks to both of you for fighting the good fight. It has been such a fascinating conversation. Dena, can you let everyone know how they can connect with all of you at the Leadership Institute? How they might be able to get on
Absolutely.
your email list and all of that and learn more?
Absolutely. So our website is leadershipinstitute.org. In there, you can find links to find your campus resources. We've got people on campus across the country, people in states across the country helping the students that are currently on campus. And then the other half of Leadership Institute is trainings, political trainings. And when I say political trainings, you're like, I don't want to run for politics. Me neither. It's how to grassroots lobby, how to communicate better, how to
Mm.
win debates, how to be better on camera. In addition to the running for office and everything else, how do you have a career in politics? And that's on our training site. So leadershipinstitute.org/training for if you're an adult and you want training. And I believe it's leadershipinstitute.org/campus to get involved on campus.
So good. Well, thanks to you both for the incredible work that you're doing. Fascinating discussion. And I hope everyone listening will take this to heart. We can all do something to change the outcome of our elections, who's in local and state and national leadership. It is so important that we are faithful citizens as well. So thank you both very much. And again, I'm sorry to you and so many listening for the loss of our friend Charlie Kirk. No doubt we're going to carry his great work forward. So thanks again to you both.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to
Thank
meet
you,
you.
Thank
Lauren.
you. So good. All right. Well, closing thought here. Laura Ingraham said they hated what he, Charlie Cook, stood for: life, family, freedom. It's so worth fighting for. That's what our friend Charlie would say. And I look at heroes like Dena and Matan fighting the good fight as well, giving us top tips and strategies to turn the tide for life and family. What I remember, I learned this in law school. I remember it was a brown bag lunch. I went to this talk at lunch with one of my professors, and he said something that I never forgot. He said that law follows culture, culture being the hearts of the people. And as you and I continue to stand up, show up, advocate, and educate, we have hope to change hearts and minds. And then changing the law will be a mere formality. There's no doubt that we have so much work to do. But every heart and soul won for the cause makes an eternal impact. It changes families, it changes communities. And when we change communities, we change states. States change nations, and nations change the world. Never mistake the impact one person can make. No one proved that better than Charlie Kirk. So go out there, do your part, and make a God-given difference. Thank you again so much for joining me for another episode of the Lauren Muzyka Show. We'll be back here next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central on the Sidewalk Advocates for Life Facebook page, YouTube channel, or wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week.